Hello everyone, my name is Taylor Ireland and this is my introduction to the class and my 3 levels of government support for education. So again, like I said, my name is Taylor. I live in Colby, Kansas with my husband and our 2 pets, so there is my husband right there. When I was very young, my dad was in the Navy and he was in the Navy for 22 years. Got out when I was in about first, second grade, but I lived in Japan from ages 1 to 5, and so that was really cool. And then we moved to Lawrence, Kansas when I was in kindergarten, lived there for about 3 years, and then we moved to Eudora. My mom and dad still live in Eudora. I am a member of the Osage Nation tribe out of Oklahoma. This picture I show is me in my traditional regalia for my tribe. Um, and we hold our traditional dances once a year, every June. So a couple things about me. I'm obsessed with dachshunds. Absolutely love them. They're my favorite animals. I think they are hilarious and funny and just the most lovable dogs in the entire world. I'm also a very avid Halloween enthusiast. If I had my own house, it would be throwing up Halloween right now. I love Halloween. I love the movies, the music, everything. It's just such a fun time of year. So then my work and education, I graduated from Haskell Indian Nations University with my bachelor's degree for elementary education. And then I am currently working on my master's for instructional technology. After this semester, I have one more semester to go and I am done. So I will get to graduate in May. My first year teaching, I taught 5th grade all the way on the other side of the state in Independence, Kansas. And then this is my 4th year. And in the last 3, I have been 1st grade in Colby. So then here is my slides on the 3 levels of government control in education. So the first level is going to be federal level. So this is where we get all of our regulations, legislation, and guidance. Any acts that are passed are going to come through the federal level. So the Every Student Succeeds Act, the No Child Left Behind, FERPA, all the Civil Rights Acts, Title II, Title IX, all of those are coming from the federal level, and anything else that would come out of there as well. Congress also passes their budget every year, and roughly about 10% of that goes to all the government-run schools throughout the country. So they do give us, with them then and the state, they give us roughly about 50% of the funding for our schools. So then that brings me to the state. So the state gives a little bit more support, so they are going to be the ones have decent amount of authority. State departments set standards for our districts to follow. So depending on your state, I live in the state of Kansas, and so we follow like Common Core state standards. However, that's just for math and reading, and then our state has its own standards for the rest. So again, it'll just depend on where your state's from, but they're the ones that set those standards for the districts to then use. They, along with federal level, provide, like I said, about half of the operating costs for schools. Because of No Child Left Behind, they are still able to go and intervene in the lowest performing districts, and that's going to be the state doing that, not the federal level going into helping any of those schools who are a little behind or needing an extra help. Along with that, the state does, that is where you're going to get your options for schools. So there's charter schools, homeschooling, private, public, and magnet. So any of the school, if you are running a school, no matter what type it is, you have to get your certification through the state to make sure you are accredited. So every few years, school districts do go through that. They get accredited through their state and federal level, so then that way they can continue getting their funding to support their schools. So then local, this is where a lot more of the day-to-day operations are going to come from. So most local level schools are going to have a school board as well as the superintendent, and they're the ones that make all of the day-to-day decisions. So anything with technology, anything that needs to be bought, funded, sports, anything like that, those big decisions are always going to go through your school board, and they will either approve or disapprove depending on what it is, what is needed. And then school board is also the ones who help collect the rest of the funding for the school districts, and a lot of the times that is collected through property taxes. So school board decides how much is needed. They go to local city authorities, and then they are the ones that decide how much property tax is needed to come from the city to go through the school. So then who's in charge of all of these operations? So the federal level is going to be Betsy DeVos, and she's the secretary for the Department of Education. Her, along with the members of the cabinet for Department of Education, are the ones who decide how to improve results for the education system for the entire nation. So they're the ones who are going to sit down and see if any new legislation needs to be passed, if any acts need to be put in place, like really, really big decisions that aren't going to affect just like one school, but are going to affect schools throughout the entire nation. And then the department itself works on two goals of access to schools and the excellence of schools within our entire country. But within this, even with all that big thing, or the big things that need to be done, I still believe that they have like the smallest portion of power just in those regards, because the federal's main purpose is our laws and regulations and legislation. Whereas like the state level has a little more authority. So for the state of Kansas, our Commissioner of Education is Randy Watson, and they have the authority, again, like I've said, to set standards for the district. They, again, have chosen for the state of Kansas, we have math and reading Common Core is our standards, and then they have come up with their own set of standards for science, social studies, and then a lot of the other subjects, such as PE, art, and things like that. Again, they can also pass laws just within the state level. So if something needs to be decided just within the state, they are then the governing body that would then decide just for our state itself. So we may have some rules and regulations in Kansas that Missouri might have different for our schools. So they kind of have like the second most authority in terms of as a whole, because then once you trickle down to the actual local level, this is where you're going to have the most authority for the specific districts. Federal and state, yes, they have authority more for schools around the country or around the state in a whole, but local levels where you're going to have most of your decision making. So for us, our superintendent, her name is Katina Bren. Her, along with our school board, are the ones that are responsible for the accountability and operations for our district. Again, they decide how to use property tax money for our students. But they're going to be the ones that do all the day-to-day operational decisions. So again, like if we need to purchase new technology, if we need to purchase new books, a teacher needs to be hired, we need new sports equipment, we need a new roof for the school, anything like that, it has to go through the school board first before it can then be approved to use the funding for. And so that's why I feel like they have the most authority for the school districts, because they're the ones that truly do make those day-to-day operational decisions, whereas the state is not going to, decide if Colby, Kansas primary building needs a new roof. So then for government influence on our components, the first one, 6.1, I felt was definitely more of the local level, because again, it deals with those day-to-day operational needs that schools are going to use. So like I said, communication technology, school level governance. Again, that's really where um, the school districts are going to decide those kind of things. Like it again, if the schools need more technology, or teachers need more technology, or sports need new equipment, or any of those kind of decisions, this is going to be for, or the school board is going to do those decisions for our districts. And again, with the promoting the mission and visions of the schools, every school district is different on their missions. Um, they may sound very similar, but every school may have something that they do differently than the other one. So this level is going to be local for this component. The next component, 6.2, in my view, is going to be local and state, because local school districts as well as the state are all going to use data to help support school improvement. So we collect data to see which of our students need extra help, or we use data to see what is an area we all are struggling with: math, reading, social studies, science. We use data to decide if our curriculum is working or not. We use data every day to ensure that we are doing the right thing for our students. And then same thing with the state. They then collect our testing data to see if there's any school districts that need help, or we use data to see our graduation rates and see if there is something else we need to do for our graduations, or anything else that is going to need solid evidence is going to be data driven. And so, like I said, both the local and state are going to use those. So then the 6.3, however, is going to be state and federal levels, because state and federal levels are the ones who are going to be putting our laws in effect, any rights and policies. They're going to be the ones that are putting those in place, and they're going to be the ones that are putting those out to the school districts. So then continuing support for the students, so how it all fits is, again, local is just going to be working with individual students. That's where you have all of your teachers and paras and those day-to-day operations that are truly working with those students in the district level. Whereas state, again, they are the ones coming up with the standards that we use throughout the year. So again, they're the ones that set standards for, because you're not going to have the same standards for a first grader as you're going to have for a fifth grader. And so they're the ones that help us, because if we didn't have any standards, our jobs would be a little harder than they already are. And then again, federal is just, they're the ones that put out the acts and laws that we have to follow, as well as they can give grants to schools to continuing to support education for students. So the standard correlation was just that all the articles we had to read, it was just really interesting to dive deeper into a better look at each level. It's not something that you really think about, like, I'm going to sit down today and read my state's, all the standards, everything that they do. It's just not something you think about, but it's just very interesting to see. And again, looking at where all the funding goes, because that's definitely something you really don't think about, how much truly goes where and where that funding comes from. So then the relevance, it was just a newer view of government and schools. Last time I took school law was during my bachelor's degree, and that was a while ago. So just getting a better perspective, and as an older adult now, and having a better view for what each level has to go through so that our schools can have what they need. And then again, just to see like where everything comes from, how it's used, and what needs to be done so that our schools can function the way they need to. So then again, I definitely have a better appreciation for admin and local school board. It truly is a lot to have to deal with, and work through, because you have to make unfortunately have to make like some hard decisions where, we may this year we may get new curriculum, whereas next year we might not be able to, or we might not be able to get the things that we need. So I do have a better appreciation for what they have to go through for that. And I just think that, especially teaching first graders, these kind of things are hard for me to if I should barely even explain these things to them, as well as just it's not something I think I would think about using in the classroom with them. However, it would just be more beneficial to myself to just look into the acts and laws more and really have a better understanding of them, and then just more interactions with the local school board, like going to meetings more often, interacting with the school board members, interacting with the superintendent more, just because we are such a small district that I'm able to do that versus some larger districts where you may not be able to. And that is my presentation. Thank you so much for watching.